What up, shapeshifters? It's your guy Karas here, and we are currently looking at Technomancer. We are going to jump in and give it my review here. It's not going to be too long. I've quite enjoyed the game, but there are some bad points, so we're just going to give it a whirl and I'll give you my review. Here's the Technomancer. How's it going, guys? What's up, shapeshifters? It's Karas here. We're going to be having a look at the Technomancer. This should be my review. I've played it for about 5 hours now. I haven't completed the game, but I'm going to give it a good run through because I feel like I have enough information to show you guys what I feel about it. So far so good. The game's quite nice. It looks quite pretty. We're now currently on a town in Mars. I think, well, the entire game is set on Mars. The crafting system is the first thing we're going to have a look through, and the inventory, which I actually think is fantastic. So you've got different slots. You also have companions which you can gear up. Going through a few of them here. Just head back to my character as Zachariah. So you've got your heads, your typical slots up here. You've got your chest, your legs and gloves. One thing that I really like about the game is that the appearance actually changes quite substantial compared to each item. You can then also upgrade individual parts of it. For example, on your chest, on your belly, you can upgrade a certain sort of stat of armor. On your shoulders, you can upgrade another part of the armor. You've obviously got weapons. You've got different type of weapons, the staffs, and then obviously your pistols and guns. So let's just jump with that shown. Let's jump into the actual crafting system. So you can actually upgrade your gear as such. If you go into your gear, for example, at a crafting desk like this, as you can see, you can then select a slot and physically upgrade the gear. Also allowing you to upgrade on things like disruption, damage, resistance, to so on and so forth, which is really nice. You can also do that with weapons. So if we go to my current weapon, which is the Bukakov's dagger, and you've got here, you can upgrade, visually enhances the damage and so on. Again, we've got, like, if we have a look at, for example, the shield, so that's my spike shield, so you can have a look at that, and there you go. You can sort of change, upgrade. Here we go. So damage upgrade, that will basically give me 5 points on the spike shield if I accept. Yep. And that's now how my shield looks, which is quite cool. And same again with the armor. You've got all the slots: legs, boots, head, chest. The next thing we're going to have a look at is the leveling system, which I again think is fantastic. You have skills, so each skill is set up into sort of basically your weapon stance. Currently the warrior here. So we've got, you know, your typical increased damage, increase the speed in which you hit. You've got disruption percentages. You've got chances to knock back. You also get skills and improved skills. So here we go. Tornado is one of them, which increases damage. There you go. You can have a look at it there. Powerful attack that hits enemies several times while you're moving. For example, Berserk. Combat stance that increases all damage by 50% and lets you unleash attacks a bit faster for 15 seconds. Can only be used every minute, 59 seconds. So you get the idea. It's basically a talent system. The best spec that I feel, and the quickest spec for me, my favourite, is the Rogue, which is a dagger and pistol, which when I come onto the combat later on, I feel this is the only way I can survive, quite frankly. The other sets are way too slow. So again, you've got your increased damage, your increased dodge rates and so on, and extensions to that. So increased poison damage, increased gun damage, greatly reduces the cooldowns and things. Guardian, which is the shield spec, which I haven't put any points in. I feel this is just way too slow. You can block, you can shield spells and reflect, but quite frankly I'm not interested in that spec just yet, so I've stayed away from it. But again, you get your nice quirky spells and abilities. Shells, combat stance that greatly increases your resistance. You've got this one here, powerful attack that reduces armor by 30%, which is quite handy. And last but not least, the Technomancer spec, which is basically your spec for every spec. you always have it on. It's basically your connections to spells, and it works in the same way. You can upgrade your electric arc, which is sort of a burst electric shock to enemies. You then have like upgrade electric weapons. Electric weapons is something that you can apply to all weapons, and it kind of gives you a percentage chance to stun and do increased damage, and so on and so forth. You have again new abilities here: electric storm, powerful attack that hits enemies in a wide area several times. You've got your increased fluid and so on, which I'll explain in a second. So that's basically the spells. You've got 4 main specs, which every time you level up you gain a point to throw into, and you can pick where they go. Now, as I just said, fluid is practically, as you see in the top left, it's your mana, and that's basically how you cast your spells. So that is on a regen base, and if you have a look down in the bottom left, that's basically my spell bar. To use them I have to hold L, and I have access to them. If I press L and Y, which does the arc sparks, which I just explained, and this will take 1 fluid. So arc sparks, there you go. They usually shoot to an enemy and damage the enemy. As you can see now, my fluid is regenerating in the top left hand corner just under my health. That's full. I can now use it again. You can use other spells as well on cooldowns. For example, the electric weapon, which I always keep engaged. I can turn it off here, which is wrong one. It's not doing the spell I want. Okay, that's odd. Basically, I haven't got the buff on. That's what I've just realised. So going off of that, I basically had gunshot on X, as you can see there. So when I hold L and X, it's an explosive shot which does a lot more damage. Now, if you press A button, depending on which format you're playing, you'll go up to a menu here, and this is basically where you can slot your spells. So I have obviously your combat abilities here, potions which you can slot, which I have one as A, and then obviously orders, which I don't use, I just let them follow me as my companions. So with that said, I'm just going to move through to one of the next areas, which is this way. A quick overhaul on the UI. This is quite handy. The map is fantastic and easy to use. The game is quite big, I'll give it that. The game is overall probably a bit too big in terms of the town and so on. If you hold R at any point, you can bring this map overlay, and it works really easy. You've got obviously companions and vendors, places to loot and craft, all on the map there. So that's kind of the UI. Top left, you've got your XP bar and health bar, and your companions obviously here behind. They do have health bars in combat. They don't show up as obvious as your one does. And let's jump into the next part, which is basically talents. So coming off of the skills, you have talents. These are somewhat like the talents in Fallout, where you have charisma, science, crafting. They increase your percentages of success with those attributes. For example, charisma increases chance of success in dialogue with the charisma by 25%. It also gives you bonuses, for example 20% prices with merchants, and so on and so forth. The next one will increase again and again and so on. Science increases your dialogue chance with science conversations by 25% and so on. Again, crafting, you get the idea, crafting dialogue. Exploration, which I'm a fan of, basically increases the percentages of getting certain loots and where you can loot, and gives you more access and so on. Traps and lockpicking, this increases your lockpicking skills. So obviously to open this door or this crate you will require 2 lockpicking, 3 lockpicking. You get a point there. Stealth again increases your stealth stealthiness. That's literally what it says. While you steal items, being stealthy makes less noise and so on. Increases your crit chance and so on while you stealth. These attributes, talents, aren't as regularly given to you as the skills. These are basically every 5 levels or so, every 3 or 4 or 5 levels you get a point, so then you can dump them in where you want. I currently have a point, but I'm playing the way that I am going to use my point when I need it, because I got a bit stuck earlier at a point where I basically needed to have a point to progress in the story. I then had to basically level up loads and come back 3 levels later just because I needed 1 more point. The menu layout, as you see, you've got a bag which I believe you can fill up, but I've never really fully filled up, just because I haven't. But I know there was one point in the game where it said inventory full, you can't sprint, but other than that I've never had it before. It's quite a weighty bag. And I was saying that wrong. You've got talents and then attributes. Again, these are very simple things. It's mainly divided into specs. So strength is for warrior spec, agility is for rogue, Technomancer is the power, and for guardian is constitution. These basically just increase certain statistics. For example, crit hit, spell hit, and so on with agility, energy regained for Technomancer, health and payload or max load for constitution, and so on. I've been specialising in agility because I am using the rogue spec. That also boils down to what you can wear. For example, you may get a really good piece of armour that requires 3 agility, but it obviously favours the rogue spec. Next, you've got statistics and stats, XP, you know, your percentages, so your resistance to distribution and so on, your resistance to acids, your attributes and talents, your fluid and health points. This is practically the RPG part of it, which I actually haven't really looked at and don't really care too much about. I mean, it's here, but there's not too much to do with it. You know, you put your points in, you gain it, that's it. The game doesn't feel like it relies on this system too much. Reputation, which I jump to here. So you've got basically reputations with different people and fractions, which is really odd. I'm slightly confused with certain things. You know, no spoilers, but I started the game being friendly with this gang. I moved on and then I become hated. I moved on and then they like me again, and it's very choppy changes. It seems to be linear and doesn't really have any play on actually what you do. Quests, you've got main quests, side quests, everything here. You know, you can find your completed quests, you can hide them, which I do. They give you XP. Main quests obviously get you through the game. Your map, as you can see, it has everything on there, and also the world map, which is basically your zones and where you can travel to. So I'm just going to run down and get into some combat here, if I can. If I know where I'm going. I'm going to just jump off here. If I can, I can't. Okay, that's fine. Alright, so we're back here on the outskirts of town, and basically I'm going to give you a run through on combat. So you've got your stances, which are the warrior, which I really liked. I found this is the spec I wanted to play, and then found that this is the spec I hate, because it's quite frankly too slow. The next one, rogue, which is the one I prefer, the dagger and pistol, which I'll be mostly playing, and the shield. Shield is great for defense, but again, way too slow to swing. I do not like this spec. Now, with that said, combat is the worst part of the game. I have found many issues and many basically defaults where I just don't enjoy the game. It feels like the enemies are on a 50% quicker play than you. They just seem to move quicker, always hit, which isn't a problem. You know, if the game is designed in that way, then that's fine. As you can see right now, I'm actually quite successful in that mob. They don't seem to be ganging up. There is also that. If you're one-on-one, you seem to be okay. You deal with it not bad. I just use the staff here. There's a lot of rolling. It's very much taken the idea from Arkham series. So just like the Batman series, you sort of roll and hit, roll and hit, and if you're lucky you get a few hits in and so on. Just loot the mobs here. Let's take a few more. So the combat works nice. As you just saw, it kind of plays nicely, but there are times, mostly versus human mobs, where you literally get destroyed because they can gang up on you. I found it quite exhausting when you get in a corner and there's 3 mobs hitting you. You can be hit in concessions to be completely blocked out. It's really not fun. I'm just going to use a spell here to show you the arc. and my pistol here for range. There you go, just getting it. It's very, like, it also works very turn-based. If you press attack and you feel you're too late, you can't roll out of it, or, you know, if you go to press your shoot and you shoot and the enemy is just about to hit you, you cannot cancel that animation, obviously. The gameplay itself is quite nice. The sort of story and the atmosphere of it is quite good. I quite enjoy the fact that we're on Mars. It's very slum based, there's no water and everything is kind of Mad Max about it. The sound, nothing to it. I'd give the sound a 1 out of 10. It's absolutely dry. There's not much, you know, music or the soundtrack. It's a very basic game soundtrack. The leveling up system and crafting system, the leveling skills system, fantastic. I like it, I enjoy it. I'd give that sort of 7-8 out of 10. Really easy to use. The loot and the crafting materials required are quite easy to obtain. They're just from looting mobs and so on. There are crates all over the place where you can loot and get metal components and so on, which are then needed for upgrades. The combat system, I really like the idea, but it just doesn't feel like it works. I feel if it worked it would be very high and I'd enjoy it. As it stands, I give the combat a 2-3 out of 10. I'm not happy at all. I'm playing a lot better nowadays knowing that the game works the way it does. At the beginning I was getting extremely frustrated with the fact that it doesn't really seem. So, for my review, I give Technomancer a 6 out of 10. The world and environments is fantastic. I like the settings. The story is a bit all over the place, but it can be quite interesting for those space nerds. The combat system severely lacks, unfortunately. The characters are a bit dull, and the progression system is as best as it can be. Karas, 6 out of 10.